Well, a very thrilling Christmas game played at Villa Park this afternoon. It ended in favour of the home team, Aston Villa beating Manchester United by 2-1. Brilliant performance again by Morgan Rogers. But just, I suppose, looking at the big picture, Brian, for Aston Villa, they came into this game with a bit of a hoodoo. Well, Manchester United had a bit of a hoodoo over Aston Villa. So in the grand scheme of things, how important is it for them to get that victory against a team that they normally lose or draw to?
I think it's vital, but I don't think the previous fixtures and the history of the fixture, where they only one win in the previous 26, matter today. As I said, when it's new players, they wouldn't be looking back and saying, "Oh, well, that happens to them, so it'll happen to us." I think it was about their own performance today and finding a way to get a result, and they did that today. And what was a smashing game. I I thought overall Manchester United deserved to get something from the game. They played well, they attacked well, they made a fair few chances. They were hit by a couple of sucker punches, but they were great goals nonetheless. That Villa got, Manchester United got a good goal themselves. But it was vital win for Villa. Extends the gap between themselves and Manchester United, but it also gets them back in touch with the top two.
Yeah, it's the first time they've won 10 plus matches consecutively since 1914. So it's quite the record by Unai Emery and his team, and helped largely by Morgan Rogers, who put on a really good display today. Although I know maybe Villa weren't as good in the first half, maybe as they were in the second. But how good is this Morgan Rogers fella, Brian?
Well, he's a smashing player. I mean, his development has been a bit of a slow burner. He was at Man City, he was loaned out to several clubs, including Lincoln, Blackpool, Bournemouth. But I think he kind of, his form exploded when he was at Middlesbrough. And he had a very good season. And then Villa were able to buy him from Manchester City. I think, regular football, playing the Premier League, getting that experience in the lower divisions. And he's just proved himself now that he's an exceptional player. He's been playing regularly in the English team under Tuchel. But like pulling out those goals today when they need them, as he did against West Ham last week, that's such an asset to have in the team, that a player can do that with that kind of quality. Off very little ball today. I didn't think he had an awful lot of ball. They were always under pressure in the midfield area. So when he got a pass, it was generally he was receiving it under pressure and without an awful lot of support. But there were two magical finishes by him. The first one, obviously, when he picked her up out on the touchline, McGinn's pass was his first touch. He was well in off the touchline, but by the time he retrieved possession, it was almost touch and go as they're in play. And then he comes back inside on his right foot, takes it towards Yarrow, and then makes that little bit of room to get the curling shot away with his right foot. The other one was a bit easier, in that he was closer to the goal, he had less work to do, but still a fantastic finish.
The other thing about Aston Villa today was, at certain times while he's been at Villa, Unai Emery's always had to patch up his defence in a way. Like, he's had to be without Pau Torres this weekend, and on other occasions Tyrone Mings has been a long-term injury. Cons has been out at times, and he always seems to be having to patch up his defence. Like, Victor Lindelof comes in today. I know he is an experienced player, but some would say maybe not the best of defenders. Does it come down to the fact, and you noted during the game, that both Kamara and especially Onana played really well? Is that why he can kind of survive with those patched up defences in games?
I think the manager is an exceptional manager. I mean, I always liked him going back to his Seville days and winning the Europa League on a regular basis. He went to Arsenal. He almost became a figure of fun at the end of his time at Arsenal, which wasn't very long because his English wasn't great. But I thought he was harshly treated, and then he went off again. He did what he did at Villarreal, which again was extraordinary. So I think he's a great manager, and I think he's able to work with the hand he's dealt with. I mean, if you remember pre-season this year, there was a lot of unease around Villa, even in the first few games until the window actually closed. They lost Jacob Ramsey and a few other very good squad players, Dean Danker and Alex Moreno. A couple of others that were, even like if you look last year, they loaned Wayne Dia out to Leverkusen. But they didn't seem like they were in in the position, and they weren't in the financial position to buy kind of ready-made quality players. In fact, they had to pay a fine to UEFA for breaking the spending limits and the wage bill. So they, but he just got on with it when they didn't have a win the first 5 games. So he has an ability to patch up teams and to get the best out of the players they have. And you look at today, you mentioned the 2 players missing, Mings and Pau Torres from the centre of the defence. But you look at the substitutions he was able to make today. There was good quality in those players they were bringing on. Like, I would compare it to Manchester United and say, well, they're bringing on Martinez, who was a centre-back in midfield. Now, he did quite well. But they're bringing on young Fletcher for his debut and the young lad Lacey for his debut. Late in the game, when they're chasing the goal in such a vital, it would suggest that Manchester United haven't got the depth there. Those young players coming through the academy, it's fantastic that they can still do that, and there's players from the academy starting in the first team, still prolonging that record. But at the same time, you don't want to be blooding them on the last game before Christmas when you're just off the top 4 and you're trying to scramble into the 5 and you're playing against Villa away. That would be my view on it. But Emery has that ability to. I'm sure Lindelof was gumming to play today, having been released by Manchester United. It was a fault on the he got away with the one on the first chance that Mbeumo had, or not Mbeumo Kuma had, in the first half, where he poked the ball back out. But in general, he did a decent game. He probably was at fault when Kuna missed the header the second half as well, but overall he did a decent enough game. He's an experienced player, experienced international player, so there's no reason why he can't come in and do a decent job at that level of match today. And I think he did that. I think all the Villa players did their job well, but I thought Manchester United played very well today.
2 quick ones on Villa before. Ollie Watkins can be streaky. He got an assist there today. Should they be looking at a centre forward in the January window? Either on loan or...
Well, if you remember last year, they sold Duan when I don't think they really want to sell him, but I think that might have been financial reasons as well that they sold him. And also, there was that thing where he was doing very well when he played. He seemed to be like a bit of a hot head to handle. And when he wasn't in the team, he seemed to be like he wasn't great for the atmosphere and spirit for the team. He wasn't being patient. He wanted to be playing there and then. But there was times where he played ahead of Watkins, or when he came on instead of Watkins, he was very effective. So he's gone. They signed Gisson, that's probably the closest thing they signed. So he hasn't been consistent. We saw him early in the season. He looked like a fella who had to adapt to the Premier League, that he was a skillful big centre forward, but not a traditional style centre forward, player up to me and I'll hold it up, or I'll flick on headers at set pieces. And it looked like that wasn't his game, and he was going to, but he has skill with the ball at his feet. So maybe he will mature into a good alternative to Watkins, but there isn't the consistency about Watkins that I'd say defences are fearing him or are afraid of him. I'd say there's a few positions Villa would like to strengthen in, but right now they're probably in a position where they're still under a bit of pressure to adhere to all the financial regulations and stay within whatever boundaries have been set by the financial fair play stuff. Whether they can break out of that and spend 30, 40 or 50 million pound to get a now centre forward, I'm not sure they're in that position. But look, we saw today, and the results suggest they have a very good squad. They've now won, I think it's 11 wins out of the last 12 games in the league. I mean, that's some form.
Is it title-winning form? Could they challenge for the title?
Of course there is. The only defeat was to Liverpool. They're managing the Europa League at the same time, not putting out the strongest teams in that. So they are... if you've gone, where are we, 17 games now, which in terms of the season, it's not quite halfway, but you're not too far off halfway, and you're in touch. Well, then there is, but I'm not saying that they're going to win the league, but what are they 3 points off Arsenal now, wasn't it? 36 to 39.
Yeah.
So they are in contention at the moment, and they've beaten a lot of the teams up around there that have been beaten Arsenal, beaten Manchester City already this season. You'd have to put them in involved. Whether they can maintain that consistency that they've shown, we'll have to wait and see. I think they're probably a bit short of the squad and the ability to maintain it over the season, but we just have to wait and see, won't we? It's making it interesting.
Yeah, and they'll be tested over the next couple of weeks because they've got Chelsea away, Arsenal away before the turn of the year, and then they're home against Nottingham Forest. So this is the big test for Aston Villa. Manchester United, on the other hand, Brian, their next couple of games, they're at home to Newcastle United, at home to Wolves before they go away to Leeds. So a couple of tricky games in those three for Manchester United, but you know they're not going to be challenging for the title. But you'd have to say, based on today's performance, which was very good, you felt they deserved something from the game against the likes of Bournemouth in the first half. They're showing progress under Ruben Amorim.
Yeah, but they should be. I mean, they've invested heavily in 3 forwards this year. They've spent a huge amount of money, and they've spent a huge amount of money over the last few seasons on players in general, and got very little return for a lot of them. Different managers signing different players. Ten Hag was allowed to sign a gang of his. Amorim hasn't had so much time. He's only had, he's had the window January last year and the summer. They invested, as I said, in the forward players. They've got a goalkeeper. They got Ugarte in midfield. That hasn't worked out yet. They've got to invest in players in midfield because between Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes, I think you're at 65 years of age between the two of them, so that's not the future for them. And if the manager doesn't want Maino, then they've got to sign a midfield player. You saw today they brought on young Fletcher to play in there late in the game. They moved Martinez coming back from an injury in the midfield area. So, they've, but there are signs of the attacking football that Manchester United fans want to see. We saw that last couple of weeks. 4-1 at Wolves, 4-4 with Bournemouth. Good attacking performance today. Plenty of chances even without Mbeumo not available. Mbeumo gone off. There's signs of that, and they've scored plenty of goals. That's 31 in the league this year in comparison to last season. I think it was in the low 40s altogether. So they're doing, and then they're blooding young players at the back who look like players with potential. While Maguire is out, the list is out. And you're always looking at Maguire. Do they want him or not want him? And the same with the lead, who's probably played quite well this year. So there's a lot to be sorted, but there are signs of some progression, particularly in the front part of the pitch. But you would have to expect that after, what was it, probably about 200 million they spent on the three forwards.
And then just on Diallo and Mbeumo, here's another phrase that you love, Brian, 11 goal contributions from those two in their 30 goals scored before today. So missing them and possibly Bruno Fernandes, who went off injured at half-time for those next couple of games, particularly against Newcastle United. Like, how is Ruben Amorim going to try and work around that?
Well, you mentioned the substitutions today. You put on Xerxes and not much happened with him. He seems to be a player struggling for confidence, and he's one of the ones suggesting they might let him out. Suggesting he might go to Roma actually instead of Ferguson. But you look at Xerxes, as I said, coming on, Martinez coming on in the middle of the field. It was a centre back, and then 2 young lads, Fletcher and Lacey. Who else did they bring on, the fifth player? But like, there was no great depth where you were saying, oh, look who's coming on here. So they look like they're a bit short. And if you add that to the problems they have with the injuries, with Maino not being available now, Mazraoui, the players that have gone away, centre backs, it's hard to see them going on a streak and winning 5 games in a row. Although today is only the second defeat in 11 games. They're on 5 wins, 4 draws, and 1 defeat before today's game, which was good enough. Good steady stuff. Although the 4 draws, you're dropping 2 points each match, but enough to get them well up the table. And maybe with a couple of home games coming up, the crowd can drive them on, irrespective of who's playing. Mount is interesting that his form seems to come back after a lot of injuries. Sesko still hasn't had a couple of chances today, played reasonably well, looked a bit of a threat, but didn't finish. Kuna played very, very well. How much more they get out of him over the Christmas period, you wonder. Although he still seemed to be going strong late in the game. Dorgu was a real plus. I thought about him, and Dallow did very well in the wide positions today. So there's some signs of progress, but an awful lot to do.
And would top 4, top 5 Champions League qualification, is it beyond them, do you think, this season?
I don't think it's beyond them, but I think it'll be hard for them to achieve it, given the squad that certainly, you're looking at Arsenal, Man City will be in that top 4. After that, you say Chelsea still have a very good chance. They have a good squad of players. They're juggling around the juggling competitions and the Champions League as well. Liverpool still have a squad of players, and how much will their focus go to the Champions League too? But you would think that they're all going to be very much in with a shout, and of course Aston Villa on today's evidence. But Manchester United can be in that shout, but they need to get consistency, and maybe they can improve the team when the window comes in January. They never seem to be short of bucks to buy players, Manchester United, and it's probably unlikely that that's going to stop now either.
Just finally then, Brian, any chance Santa might drop a Bohemian St. Patrick's Athletic Aviva Stadium ticket into your stocking for Christmas?
Well, I hope they're scarce, Stephen. I hope every child in the country wants one, and we're struggling to get one. Wouldn't that be a great day where they have to change the 30,000 crowd limit and say, oh, we're opening the top tier, we're going to 50,000 for that. That would be a good day, wouldn't it? But that's something to look forward to in February, Stephen, when the League of Ireland starts again. Should be a good opening match on the Sunday, that's for sure.
Yeah, certainly will be. Well, listen, we'll be back next weekend and Off the Ball with Sunderland against Leeds United, and then Crystal Palace against Tottenham. We'll hopefully chat to you then.